What is systemic discrimination? Systemic discrimination can be described as patterns or behaviors, policies, or practices that are part of a structure like of an organization which create or perpetuate disadvantages for marginalized demographics, and it is when policies and practices result in barriers for and exclusion of other groups. It is deeply embedded within an institution or a sector, often assumed to reflect the natural or inevitable order of things, and so may sometimes be invisible for people that are not experiencing it.
There are many forms of this systemic discrimination. Under the Equality Act, there are four main forms of discrimination, which include direct, indirect, and as well as harassment and victimization. Discrimination may take many forms. It can happen when individuals or organizations specifically exclude people with disabilities in housing, employment, or services, or withholding benefits that are available to others, or imposing extra burdens that are not really imposed on other specific groups without a legitimate or bona fide reason. On the outermost level, attitudes, conduct, or practices may look neutral, yet they have an adverse effect or probably just exclude certain groups.
The types of systemic discrimination are systemic racism, systemic sexism, and systemic classism. Systemic racism is an institutional racism which refers to chronic racial prejudice embedded in society's institutions. It is often traced to deliberate acts of discrimination in the past, such as laws mandating residential segregation by race. It refers to policies that place people of color at a compounded disadvantage, such as standards for hiring and promotion in an institution. Systemic sexism refers to deeply ingrained policies that maintain male dominance in workplaces, politics, and other public spaces. It is traded to historical patriarchal societies that explicitly and overtly preferred men over women for jobs. And classism occurs when people who are of lower socioeconomic status face barriers within social institutions, such as disparities in access to quality education, where schools and hospitals in poor regions end up with fewer resources.
Effects and consequences. It impacts physical and mental health, leading to aches and pains, increase in cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, and it also leads to anxiety and depression. It affects engagement and satisfaction, as discrimination drains people's motivation and commitment to their tasks, causing disengagement. And those who feel they've been discriminated against find it hard to trust that their organizations will do the right thing when it comes to matters of ethics and integrity. There are social costs as it could lead to earlier retirement, social exclusion, and long-term unemployment, causing valuable skills to be lost. There are also legal costs when those who've been discriminated against file a lawsuit against the said organization. For example, the Black Class Action, where thousands of Black public servants filed a lawsuit against the federal government, accusing it of systemic racism, discrimination, and employee exclusion. The federal government was said to have spent over $7.8 million addressing this challenge. What is being done about it? We have human rights legislation such as the Charter, the Canadian Human Rights Act, that helps to remedy the situation for those being discriminated against and prevent further discrimination. We have the Human Rights Commission, where complaints can be made concerning discrimination. We also have the Human Rights Tribunal that resolves claims of discrimination and harassment.
How to address systemic discrimination. Understand the perception of discrimination and the effect it can have on other people is the first step to addressing the issue. And making use of numerical data and statistics. Numerical data can reveal whether radicalized or discriminated people are treated equally within a company or whether they're not. Policy review. Studies of the side effects of policies need to be conducted, which can lead to policy reforms, which in return could recreate fair policies and inclusive structures. It's also crucial to avoid designing rules, practices, and decision-making processes that ignore individual diversity.
Groups that have suffered from discrimination have valuable contributions to make to the society. Therefore, the work of governments must be focused on principles of equitable representation and responsiveness. Thank you.